I've always been a big fan of Donald Glover. I think he's a really talented guy, and certainly one of the best aspects of Solo: A Star Wars Story. And today we're going to be talking about the Lando project, which does follow on from yesterday's video, where I spoke about the reason we're probably going to get more news for it in 2024, even though it's still much further down the pipeline. In September, we got the news that it's no longer being adapted as a Disney Plus show, but instead a movie. We still don't know if it's going to be confined to Disney Plus as a streaming special or if it's going to be a big screen theatre release. But for all intents and purposes, it will likely connect to Solo, probably as a spiritual sequel and not a literal direct one, because it really sounds like Kathleen Kennedy specifically is trying to move away from the 2018 movie, but no doubt a lot of the cast is probably going to be the same. No story details are known, and we have no clue if Billy D. Williams is involved in any capacity as an older Lando, maybe recounting his life as a narrator. But today, my dear friends, with that recap out of the way, Disney have finally given us a compelling reason to be hyped, because whenever Lando is discussed, there is a lot of apathy from fans, with many wondering why do we need another beloved character's backstory. Well, for those who've been paying attention to the comic side of the franchise, in the recent Star Wars issues number 40 and 41, they've set up the exact reason and justification for the upcoming movie's existence. Star Wars number 40, which we're going to start with, highlights the most impressive attribute of Lando Calrissian, one which he is very well known for ever since he first appeared in The Empire Strikes Back. His ability, or should I say impressive ability, to lie and create different personas. Almost like Luthen Rael from Andor, although he's an unassociated character with different motives. And just to draw another comparison, this makes the Lando project a candidate for what the Book of Boba Fett could have been if it had explored other crime syndicates and other parts of the underbelly of the galaxy, which both Han and Lando were very well acquainted with. But it's his talent to create different personas and almost deceive people and manipulate them to get by that makes him so fascinating. And in the aforementioned recent comics, they've been exploring this through his friendship with Lobot and his reliance on lies to influence and achieve his goals. The issue ties into the Dark Droids comic, which is coming to an end. Between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, Lando is trying to save Lobot, his right-hand man. Thanks to the sentient droid virus known as the Scourge, Lobot has become corrupted via his cybernetic implants, and as such, key flashbacks reveal Lando and Lobot's earlier adventures before the original trilogy, highlighting a key truth about Calrissian's character that could and should serve as a strong foundation for the upcoming film. As acknowledged by Lobot himself, there's a wide array of different Lando Calrissians, different personas that he embodies, due to his masterful ability to navigate and escape any situation through lying. And even though later in the timeline in both the expanded universe and in canon, Lando softens up and he's always had a good heart, they should strike a balance in the film. Here is the part of the comic that concerns what we're talking about. Lobot says to Lando, "You didn't have some killer scheme you pulled out at the last minute. You just lied. Repeatedly. Fluidly. Enough bantha poodoo flowing out of you to fill up this whole lake." And Lando, proving he'll do anything to reach his ends, replies, "So? They bought it." "That's not my point," Lobot replies. "I've seen you do that so many times. You've got more stories than a library." And here's a really interesting comment. "You've been 1,000 different people to some of the scariest folks in the galaxy. Most of them don't have any idea. And if you run into them, you snap back into the Lando they knew, the story you told them then." There are a couple of interesting things here. When Lobot says you've run into 1,000 different scary people in the galaxy, that is what we need to see in the Lando movie, especially if, as Tamara Morrison recently said, we're probably not getting a Book of Boba Fett Season 2. Show us the Hutts, show us maybe Crimson Dawn, if they're continuing from Solo and the timeline is right. And the other point Lobot makes, which is of note, is when he says Lando just snaps back into character. This ability to swindle people with a different persona and remember all of them. And it reminds me of the scene in The Empire Strikes Back, where on Bespin, Leia is confused. Why does Han like this guy? And Han tells her he doesn't trust him, but he is his friend. And while upon first watch as an audience member you find this ridiculous, it's kind of remarkable how well it sums up Lando Calrissian. It's rather accurate. He's not a bad guy. Despite his shortcomings, those that knew him well, Han Solo and Leia, realized he's got a good heart. He means well. But in the same breath, take him with a pinch of salt. You can't always trust him. At times he will put his own goals and safety ahead of the interests of others. Lando, in this comic, then says, "If this is a compliment, then compliment accepted. But if you've got a question, Lobot, maybe you should ask it." And Lobot replies, "How the hell do you do it? How do you lie like that?" And then Lando gives us a little bit of insight into his psyche, which is, to a certain extent, kind of redeeming. He says, "Well, for one thing, I treat it like a full-time job. I keep notes, I review them, I have a whole system. I'm just really good at it." He seems very self-aware, and that's why from a certain point of view a backstory could be good, to learn how he became like this. What circumstances in his upbringing required him to swindle, manipulate, and lie, but at the same time he's extremely intelligent. The upcoming Lando movie should use this attribute to show a lovable, yet unpredictable and unreliable narrator, featuring the adventures of the younger form of the character in a unique and non-traditional Star Wars way. Definitely one of the best, if not the best trickster, and at times con artist, in the entire galaxy. Now, as for the next issue, comic issue number 41, they just reintroduced one of Lando's most awesome abilities from Battlefront 2, a power called Sharpshot, which again, if they're going to be consistent to Star Wars lore and canon, they should feature in the film. In Star Wars Battlefront 2, Lando's Sharpshot causes damage at 200 from a range of 40 meters, making him a particularly deadly character to play as, with some players even calling it an overpowered ability. I remember this criticism, and now they brought it back in the latest canon comic. In issue 41, we see Luke, Leia, Chewie, and Lando battling an army of droids that have been affected by the aforementioned scourge, the viral droid hive mind hellbent on assimilating the entire galaxy, and it's just learned how to possess living organics. Lando indirectly mentions Sharpshot, and then later, when he's trying to rescue Lobot, he activates a droid he helped rescue. This droid is able to recover Lobot fully, but at first, the droid is hesitant, so Lando threatens him by saying, quote, "As Leia knows, I'm a very good shot. If Lobot dies, I don't need you anymore." Just a pretty neat little detail. And in case you missed it, my dear friends, go and check out my last news update, the Christmas Day one, where we talk about The Mandalorian Season 4, Carson Tava, Lando, Star Wars movies, and so much more. But with that said, my dear friends, share your thoughts on everything we spoke about in the comments down below. Are you looking forward to the Lando movie? Should it be on Disney Plus? Should it be on the big screen? Let me know. And if you enjoyed this one, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. May the Force be with you, always.